And basically, we're going to start off, it's 3D in the cloud. It collapses the content creation pipeline, and it's standards-based. It uses both COLLADA and other OpenGL and WebGL standards. What can it do? It can import COLLADA content. It can edit and combine assets, creating scenes online. You can preview stuff, and you can generate, you can publish with a number of APIs. I have to realise I'm doing something which I would say you should never do, which is basically read your own slides out. Let's talk about it a bit more. Collapsing the pipeline. What do I mean by collapsing the pipeline? Well, the trouble about creating 3D content is it's actually, there's a lot of it, and it's very complicated, and it involves complex processes. We know all about that. So what you typically do today is you create something which may involve having an editor, you know, an artist and editors get together, or depending on what your application is. I'm not just restricting my discussion to game developers, but you may be having a sort of process to decide what it is you want to create and edit, and use a standard DCC tool for that. And then you export it, and you might typically export it with COLLADA or some other format, and you build a system, because inevitably your system is a lot more than just a few bits of 3D. You know, there's some programming, some other data, and some other assets that you have to use with it. And then you're going to need to be able to preview. You have to see how it's going. And finally, after you've decided what you want, you publish it. And that's the pipeline in sort of summary. And if you want to make some changes, you have to look back from the preview to the edit now. And what's different about Molly is that we adopt a slightly different approach. So you create stuff, you edit it, you preview it, and you publish it. And the reason why we can miss out the whole export and build system steps is because it's all done on the web. The web, you know, I'm actually, I have to throw in this little anecdote. 15 or so years ago, I was running a European project, a European funded project. And I went to this place in Geneva called CERN. And while I was there, I was introduced to a guy called Tim Berners-Lee. And, you know, so, I was introduced to him because he was a friend of mine. He said, meet Tim. He's working on this really interesting idea of sharing data. And that really interesting idea, of course, proved to be the World Wide Web. And I've actually seen the web change the world in more ways than many people can realize. And one of the things I'm seeing happen now with the web is it's actually changing the way that we work in virtually every industry. And what I find interesting is that a lot of the 3D industry hasn't really caught on yet that the world is going to change. Not only the way is content being distributed is being changed, but the way that content is going to be developed is going to change. Right? And you can actually see this much more in the area in which I've been recently working in, which has been the kind of field of development of web applications. The nature of developing software is changing. It's becoming online, it's becoming collaborative, and that's really what we're trying to do. So let's look back and see how COLLADA fits into our vision of Molly. Firstly, I have to say that I think the COLLADA specification, I've been looking into a number of aspects of how to do what I wanted to do. And the COLLADA specification actually proved to do more things than I realized it could possibly do. And it proved to actually reflect entirely the need that I had for generating collaborative online content. However, in many cases today, COLLADA isn't actually being used at anything like the level that it could be. It only represents one scene. You know, it's actually, that's something that's built into the COLLADA spec, that basically each scene should be, each file should represent one scene. There's an asset tag that can be used for tracking and monitoring changes, but it's actually only available in one place. But, I mean, it's only read sorry, what I'm trying to say is typically it's only used in one place. And it allows referencing from within the file to both other parts of the file and to externally to the file. But that's the, via URI scheme, but that's actually good to use as well. So when we started to architect how we, I shouldn't say that word, my wife always tells me architect is not a verb. But when we started to create the architecture for Molly 3D, we looked at it that there's a whole range of potential assets in a COLLADA file. So as the COLLADA file is imported, even if it's not marked as an asset, it becomes an asset in our database. You can reference an asset from other COLLADA files, from other scenes outside the actual original scene in which it appears. And you can create scenes by merging assets. And you can do all of this online. So, if you want to make changes, the current system for managing content gives you, requires you that you do this whole lather, rinse and repeat thing. In other words, you create a change, you stick it through the system, you see whether the change actually happened. With Molly, the vision is to make the change and to see it happen. Right? Every change is tracked, every change is undoable and repeatable, and versions are preserved to keep the scenes that depend on them working. And that's actually an important original criteria that we have. Currently, asset management systems allow you to search, sort, and catalog things, and I've used asset management, so I've been involved in the development of asset management systems. In Molly 3D, the assets can also be dynamically created in Molly file. So let's have a use case, and this is just a simple use case. Keeping my eye on the clock. Web content creators. We've seen the whole web sort of, talk about 3D on the web, talk about 3D on the web. Suddenly, no one's doing anything with 3D on the web. And I know this is a topic that my colleague here, Yuli, is going to discuss when he does his speech. And basically, we're seeing a growth of 3D, interest in 3D on the web again. So, WebGL, for example, is likely to see the creation of a whole new kind of person creating web content, web 3D content. And that person is a web content creator. When they curate content with Molly, they can just come along, create an account on our system. They can browse the library and find the content they want to use. They can make modifications to it, which do not require significant knowledge of how the content is created in the first place, just cut and paste. They can share it with their customer and they can publish it. So let's talk about actually what it is. I mean, I've been doing the whole, sales pitch. Let's actually discuss it. Effectively, the components are, as I showed, there's a database. There's a database that can actually take COLLADA content and represent it in a relational database fashion. You can import and export data from COLLADA, and later on we'll hope to add in other formats. And you can do two things with that content. You can actually do three things with that content. Firstly, you can render it to a preview. Right? Secondly, you can browse the data with a browser, an online browser. And thirdly, you can actually take parts of that data and serve it via the REST protocol. And REST is a representational state transfer. It's a way of accessing and navigating 3D content in a safest kind of way that improves the relationship between clients and servers. And the format for that can be either COLLADA again, or it can be proprietary. Okay, let's just talk about the standards that we use. We're using COLLADA, thought that one to death. We'll be using WebGL as a preview browser. We support HTML5 and WebSockets as a way of communicating with the server. We've got a range of profiles. To start with, the COLLADA profiles that will be directly supporting are ES2 and ES1 1.1. there's a proposal afoot, at least a very early proposal, that WebGL should be added as a COLLADA profile, and we'll be supporting more profiles later. I'm just really listing here the ways that clients can communicate with Molly. We're going to be publishing a RESTful specification. You can use COLLADA extensions, as described by Remy, to add additional capabilities to the file. And we're going to provide an API that allows you to parse and import COLLADA extension data into the database. There's going to be a way of the standard rendering engine, like the free rendering engine will be WebGL, but there's going to be a pluggable mechanism that allows people to add in other rendering engines. And there's a management API that allows you to get in there and create users and groups and do all that sort of good stuff. Okay. So here's a brief review, and then I'll give a very short demonstration indeed. Looking at my clock, I'm down to 4 minutes. Okay, you can import from COLLADA 1.4 or 1.5, but we will support any future COLLADA version, and we're planning other extensions, things like Max and Y. You can manage data. The data can be owned using a role-based, and refresh the upload. You'll find that you can actually associate assets specifically with their uploaded COLLADA file. And the database is already tracking these. These are sort of like in the database. Okay. So what else can you do? Well, you can actually look at these, and what it's done is it's made each COLLADA file is now C. And if you click on that file, it will open amongst other things the steam hierarchy editor. What you can see here is basically a COLLADA file. And because of the referential things, you can actually see in here the URLs. Really are URLs. They don't actually do anything very much at the moment, but they are URLs, and they point back into the rest of the structure. And you can open multiple files, and you can look to see what is happening there. So what I'm trying to do here is to demonstrate that this really is a database. It's really being served from a web server, and it really allows you to navigate and manipulate the content. As I said, this isn't a smoke and mirrors demo. So features like dragging this and dropping it over here are planned but not supported, but they will be supported in the next few weeks. Okay, well I'm sort of running out of time, so let's go back to the presentation. Simply say, okay. Right. What we're looking for at the moment is people to come and sign up for private trials. If you're interested in working with us on this, please contact me. My email address is on the presentation, which will be up on the COLLADA website, on the Khronos website, but please feel happy to sort of talk to me afterwards. The public beta is going to start, I hope, by Q4 of this year, and the first full release of something that's sort of generally usable will be at the beginning of next year. Now, this is a web application, so it's not like you have to go for a gold master level. It's going to be evolved using current software practices. So actually, I'm very interested in people coming along and saying, well, it's sort of quite nice, but it would be really nice if it did this, or it would be really nice if it did that. And